是侥幸。Need a horn and a drum roll. Turn up, yeah! I never talk to them boys that sat on them benches. I never talk to them boys that sat on them benches. I was in the game on 4th and inches. Now it's time to go to work. Mic check, mic check. Make sure you give me a thumbs up. Let me know how I'm sounding. It's been a while since I've done that intro, so I just decided for old time's sake, go back to the old intro for just a hot second. But what is going on, Florida State family, Seminole Nation, and the 863 tribe? It is your boy POLK, a.k.a. the goddamn truth. And I don't know where it came from, but now football season is right on the doorstep. It just seems like it came out of nowhere, in my opinion. And here we are. FSU, Georgia Tech. So you know that's what we're talking about. We're talking about some Florida State, Georgia Tech. We also want to talk about a list of things that has happened since the last time we talked. Hold on a second. Make sure we're good here. Hold on 1 second. All right. So we got a list of stuff to talk about. But of course, man, before we do all of that, y'all already know what to do. Hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, let everybody know we are live Saturday night. Noles After Dark. Of course, for me, as you can see, it's Noles in the damn morning. Almost, man. I am almost out of this place called Korea. Almost. We're less than 60 days out from me getting out of here and getting back into the studio, getting back on a normal time schedule. But anyway, hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, get in the comment sections as we talk about everything leading up to FSU Georgia Tech. We'll preview the roster, we'll preview the depth chart, what I think the starting depth chart for Georgia Tech will be, and all those good things. But go ahead and get in the comment section and go ahead and let's make this roll call. Y'all know what to do. Pay the bills, hit the like button, share the video, get in the comment section. I don't know if you just saw that, but a bubble just came out of my mouth. Let me get a drink of water. My mouth's drying up here. Let's go. Todd Pope is in the building. Donald Gelsey says, what up, Pope? Go Noles. Omega the Truth says, hit the like button now. Seminoles Act says, 1 week to the drubbing in Dublin. Go Noles. Mike says, what up, Poke and chat? Gold Nose, hashtag Mike got us. FSU Tony says he's going to play his Western Michigan game during the stream. Zozuki's in the building. The Fatal Jedi. Big 3 T2Y. I'm assuming he's talking about the Gators. And then he says Miami by 30. Ice Cold Noles says, what it do, POLK? Ice Cold Noel, a.k.a. Joseph Hardaway, in the building. Peter Shields is in the building. Joe Johnson is in the building. Vontae B. Ronald Smith. KCS 85 was good with you. Almost, man. We're again. I think it's like 4 more paychecks. So if you look at it like that, absolutely almost home. Jamal M. Almighty Fences, what up? T2I having a show, and they said they're going 12-0. Good luck. Good. The guy on Take and say, good luck. Good luck. CWJR77 says, taking a Remy shot, please. Dude, take a shot for me. I'm not an alcoholic, so there's no way I'm going to be drinking at, what is it, like 10 in the morning or whatever it is here right now. So, not doing that. All right, man, let's do it. I'm going to open up the live stream with, we're just going to go off my notes here. I'm just going to, let me put my notes in front of me. I'm just going to go down the list. Instead of switching it up, I got to talk about recruiting, and not in a positive way. I got to talk about the Josh Petty situation. And I know I've talked about Tavion Wallace before. So, that is what it is. But it's too heavy. It's just a trend. It's a weird situation where you have 2 players, heavy leans to FSU. And FSU misses out on both. Now we're going to focus on Petty here, because my problem with Josh Petty's situation isn't really the fact that I think FSU just lost out on a recruitment. And that's okay. You win some, you lose some. So it's not so much as but I'm not about to get on here and tell you this coach that, this coach this coach that. I have a problem with what's being said by those that cover the team. Not so much a problem with the staff. Again, I think you win some and you lose some. It happens. You know what I'm saying? My problem again is what's being said by those who, whether they're big, small, or in the middle, those that cover the team. Now, Josh Petty. Let's talk about Josh Petty here for a quick second. Per 247, 6'5", 265, a composite ranking, a 4-star, graded at 97.83. He's a national top 40 guy at 39. He's a number 5 offensive tackle, according to the composite, at 5. And he's the eighth best player in the state of Georgia, according to 247. That's all according to the composite 247. The on 3 industry ranking, which is their version of the composite. I like to use both of these, as On3 continues to, and I think, improve that website and get fairly accurate. So I always will reference the industry ranking as well. He's a 5-star, but has a slower grade at a 95.94. They list him as 6'4", 255 on On3, but he's a national top 30 guy at 29, the number 2 interior offensive lineman and the 7th player in the state of Georgia. That's just a snapshot, right, of Petty, whether you watched his tape or not. That's just a snapshot of what is Josh Petty and the player that FSU missed out on here recently to Georgia Tech. Coincidence, FSU plays Georgia Tech week 1. They missed out on a 5-star offensive lineman to Georgia Tech. Now, again, let's talk about what's being said. Let's talk about what's really getting under my skin and making my skin crawl, because we tend to do this in recruiting when we Let me look at the camera. Right? We tend to do this in recruiting as fans and people who say they cover the team or whatever. And there's always an excuse. There's always well, we didn't really want that guy. Or we want bigger wide receivers. X wide receivers too small, even though he's a 5-star, and everybody else in the country wants him, but FSU doesn't want him because of whatever reason. So what's being said is that I think this came out from Petty's own father. Petty received like $800K. I guess that's yearly from Georgia Tech, and that instantly started the chatter. Well, he's old. I'm not paying that much for an offensive tackle. He's not worth that much money. He's a project player who's not worth that much money. X, Y, and Z. I'm not sure what people think an offensive lineman is going to go for, but let's take it back a couple years. What was that, 3-4 years? We'll go 3 years, I guess. Let's take it back a few years to the Amarius Mims situation. Now, I would love for somebody in the chat, if you remember the details, if you remember the numbers, I would love somebody in the chat to tell me what was FSU, and I believe it was does anybody remember the NIL? Wasn't it Gruthy's? I don't remember per se. But what was that deal that Amarius Mims was allegedly going to sign before, that all, what was Warchant and all them reporting? If anybody remembers, please tell me in the chat if anybody remembers exactly what that deal was. I'll wait. Just curious. While I wait and see if anybody answers my question. If not, I'll just continue. Let's get to some comments because I see some of the comments moving here. It says Brandon says, not impressed with recruiting. There's a lot to be desired. The Renegade Report, how you doing? Hooker Hill and Young Sun still a party spot, and is the Dragon Hotel still up? So the Dragon Hill Lodge is still in operation. I don't know nothing about the Hooker Hill. Listen, guy, if you would have got me out here 10 years ago when I was 25, 26, maybe. I'm an old man now, bro. I don't be out there in the streets like that. Noe Forces, what's up, Polk? I have a feeling we're about to shock a lot of people. Fatal Jetta says, I don't understand why Georgia Tech's paying so much for a player that will not be ready at least 2 to 3 years, probably even 3. We're not going to pay Petty a ton of money to sit the bench. He wouldn't start for us in 2 years. He chose academics, which is understandable. I think we flat out just missed. Leave it to these ego-driven podcasters to make up all these excuses. So no one's going to answer, obviously, in the chat. If I remember correctly, Amarius Mims was offered between $750 and I think it was $750 on the dot, but it was between $750 and I'm gonna say $900. I actually don't remember that number 900 being reported, but I'm almost positive it was around that $750 NIL dealish, somewhere around there. Could be wrong, but between $750, we'll say between $750 and $900. That was what Amarius Mims was rumored to be offered. And obviously, he decided to stay at Georgia, and the rest is history. The point is, that's 3-4 years ago that happened, and those were the numbers then. What the hell do you think a 5-star offensive lineman is going to demand in 2004? The number isn't the issue. And if it is the issue, I'll dive into that a little bit later. But the number isn't the issue. Okay? And I see these excuses, I see these reasons of, well, he's not going to play for 2 or 3 years. Excuse me, please point to me out of the 5,000 high school players that joined the Division I teams, please show me Can we count on two hands how many guys come in and have an instant impact? How many guys in the top 50? We won't even take it that deep. How many players in the top 50? How many players in the top 20 come in and play right away? All this, oh, well, he's too light. He's too small. He's got to gain weight. I don't know how much any of y'all. Some of the comments tells me that a lot of people don't follow recruiting, and recruiting has just become a popular thing for them to follow because high school offensive linemen either always have to gain or lose weight. Either always. Petty is right in line with a majority of most high school prospects. He's got to put on 40, 50 pounds, whatever the case may be. FSU hasn't seen Jalen Early or Juliano Miller on the field in 3 or 4 years. It's the normal going. How often? And the guys that you do rush out there, well, you're going to have to take your lumps. Usually, you have to rush them out there because you don't have a choice, and you're going to have to take your lumps with them as they go along. The point is, if you don't think Petty was worth the $800K, I got news for you. That's the going rate for a guy rated in the top 50 at a position that would be considered premium. O-line, D-line, quarterbacks. Those are premium positions. If you don't think that money's worth it, I would love for you to tell me what is worth it, and I would love for you to tell me where is that money going if you're not going to spend it on Petty, because FSU's not recruiting a premier quarterback in this class. They have their quarterback committed. FSU's not recruiting any other offensive lineman in this class. They're all committed. I would just love for you to tell me where is the $800K going to go if you're going to tell me, Petty's not really worth the price of admission. I just would love for you to tell me. What I believe to. So what's being said is 800 is an overpay, and Petty won't be ready to play for 2 or 3 years. Again, you have no idea of knowing that. Most college, I don't care what position you are, don't play for 2 or 3 years. I need to take a drink. I see the super chat. Chris, give me a second. And it's these reasonings. It's these excuses that really gets under my skin and makes my skin crawl. It's okay to miss on a guy. I have much more respect for people. If they just come out and say, man, what I think happened, Florida State recruited this kid, and for whatever reason, whether that's an academic reason, as we know, Georgia Tech has pretty good academics, whatever the reason, the $800K, and Florida State just wasn't maybe willing to match the $800K, which again, that's a whole different conversation of what exactly does the brain trust at FSU feel is legitimate to pay for, again, an offensive lineman. I'm just curious to know where that $800 go. But it's okay to sit here and go, hey, we just lost on a guy. We just lost on a guy. It's unfortunate. It's again, Petty, he had a big lead for him. I don't know what happened. Tavion Wallace, you had a big lead for him. I don't know what happened. If you're not willing to pay $800K for a linebacker, I might actually agree with that. Like, if you told me Tavion Wallace got $800K from Arkansas and FSU said, nah, we're good, I actually wouldn't even, I would be like, I get it. Makes sense, right? But $800K for an offensive lineman, whether he's 6'4", 6'5", 255, or 265, again, is irrelevant to me. You put bodies in the O-line room and you continue to recruit. So, again, it's not so much me criticizing the staff. Again, shit happens. You just lose a guy. It's more so me really, really out excuse me. It's more so me just frustrated with every time something happens, there's a spin to it, a major spin to it. And so at the end of the day, we lost to Petty, but all these people telling me all this he's a project, all this he's this and he's that, bro. 95% of these high school kids are projects. 95% of them. I don't care how big or small they come out of high school. 95% are projects. Marius Mims did not start at Georgia game one. I think it took 2 years for Marius Mims, the all 6'7" or 6'6", 300 plus pounds or whatever it was he was. Because I think he was sitting behind another NFL. But it still took 2 years for the man to get on the field. All of them take that time. Very rarely, unless by necessity, are you throwing out, especially players on the O-line who need to develop regardless. Very rarely are you throwing them out there. So the whole he's a project, so FSU didn't want to pay him, I vehemently disagree with that. Now, if you just tell me Florida State got outbid and didn't want to pay $800 for him, that's fine. That leads to the second part of this conversation. But before I get to the second part of that conversation, I'm going to get to the comment section and just see where we at, because I got a couple super chats that I saw. So I need to see. KCS says we missed a few. Missed on Hunter, but we got AZ. Missed on Smith and got McCoy and Moore. Mike always seems to have a plan, to have a legit backup plan. This isn't, again, it's not so much of, I mean, yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's not so much of like, again, me talking about Mike and his approach, because I don't think the approach is the problem. I'm gonna get into Paul Feinbaum. Don't worry, Todd. That's all. That's later. If he got $800K, what did Solomon get? I don't know what Solomon's getting. I don't think Solomon's has been reported, and if it is, we'll find that out later. Hold on. Let me get to the super chat. I'm just glancing over some. But Chris Robinson with the $9.99 says, "What up, Pope? Orlando on check-in." Hey man, shout out to Chris as always, coming in here, showing love, never fails. My guy, Chris. I get it. I get it. Yeah. Henry, do me a favor, big dog. I talk about what I want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about the upcoming matchup when I feel like it. And I'm going to talk about Josh Petty now because I feel like it. If you don't like it, ain't nobody forced you to be here. Jimmy says $800K is an overpay for a non-instant impact player, period. The dude is small, and it will be a while before he can make an impact on the team. You don't know that, Jimmy. I'm just telling you, you don't know that. How much do we think? I don't know. I'm not even going to go down the rabbit hole of how much you think a Lucas Simmons got, or even just go to this previous class that just happened. How much you think Luke Kromenhoek's getting? He's not an instant impact guy. How long is it going to be before he gets on the field? I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole with you. At the end of the day, that will lead, though, to the second part of this conversation. Hold on. Actually, before I keep going, I got to get to Jeff. My bad, Jeff. Almost forgot about you. Jeff with the $5 says, "How's it going tonight? Go Noles." Shout out to Jeff with the $5. He also is one of the regulars, always coming in here showing love. Deuces Henry won't be missed. Anyway, like I said, at least to the second part of the conversation. And the second part of the conversation is now I'm curious. So let's just say $800 is too much, and they're not willing to actually pay that money. Fine, it ain't my money to spend, and I get it. You have to allocate money where you deem fit. And the question for me becomes now, where are we directing that to? That becomes my question. Not so much whether we have the money or not, but if the 800K isn't good enough for that 5-star O lineman, which fine, for a multitude of reasons it could be that. Like someone said, he's too small, he's surprised, whatever the reason is, that is all fine. My question now becomes, where's the money go? Where do we allocate those resources? Again, I'm looking at the recruiting board as it stands right now. Maybe there's just some stuff I don't know, obviously. I don't know a lot. I'm just a light-skinned dude on YouTube, and just get on here and I just ramble. But my question is, where's the money? Where is the money going? I had some people tell me, we had conversations, right? I'm just saying they were conversations. They weren't telling me actual facts. We were just conversating. Yeah, people say, well, the money has to then pay for, you have a QB room full of players. You got to pay for those guys. And you still got guys on the team you got to pay for. And now my thought process is, if your current players cost dig into your recruiting budget cost, I got to say we're doing this whole thing kind of backwards for state fans. I don't necessarily believe that's what's happening. Again, no knowledge of that. That's concerning to me if what is being said is accurate. Well, they're not going to pay Petty $800K because they still got to pay Luke Cromahoe. Wait a minute. Luke Cromahoe was a part of last year's cycle. That money that you promised Luke, that should already be allocated somewhere. That should already be put aside somewhere. There's no way you should still be digging into your budget now to pay Luke or Cam or Lester or whoever you want to name. That was like a theory that was put out there. Don't know how accurate that is. I would be concerned if that was the case. I'm just curious as to where you go from here. I'm assuming they'll still recruit some guys, but they won't be a 5-star and they won't be Josh Petty. And we're just going to have to see what the plan is. Like someone said earlier in the comments, there's always a plan. There's usually always a backup plan. I'm interested to see where the money goes. Excuse me. I'm interested to see where the strategy goes after missing out on Josh Petty, a guy who I thought FSU pretty much was going to seal this one up. But for whatever reason, he decided to go in a different route. ESPN. Now, I'm not going to so much talk about, I think it's Christian Ponder's wife that got fired. I more so want to talk about RG3. ESPN fires RG3. Coincidentally, okay, I got to address this comment real quick because this is an interesting comment that I just read. I don't think FSU should pay that much for Petty. Then other guys on the roster want more. See, the problem with that logic is the market dictates what's get paid. If FSU wants to stay competitive, unfortunately, it's no different than what you see now. When college football has become pro sports, if you just want to call it for what it is, and there's no difference from what you see in pro sports. A lot of times, the highest paid guy at that position aren't the best players. They're not the best players. If you want to stay competitive, you got to pay. If not Petty, you got to pay somebody that much money. And unfortunately, you know what that means? Somebody else ain't getting that much money. Somebody who's already signed a deal is going to be now underpaid. That's just the nature. That's the market system in whether it's NBA, NFL, whatever the case. You know what I'm saying? That is just the way it goes. The last player dictates the market. So that's a Jason Tatum getting the biggest contract in NBA history. Before him, wasn't it Jaylen Brown? By what metric was Jaylen Brown ever worth the highest contract in the history of the NBA? Well, the market is what it was, not the necessarily player. So Petty might not be worth 800K, but the market says he's worth 800K. So what does that mean? That means he's worth 800K. And the next guy's going to be worth $1 million or whatever the case may be. Okay. And the guys on the team, hey, that's just, if they're going to want more money, hey, they're going to be really sad when they go to the NFL because that's just going to be the way it is. You're going to constantly seeing guys getting paid more than them. You're better off worrying about your own pockets and just getting to the big paydays and not worrying about stuff like that. So I just want to get on that comment real quick. Good comment. I just want to address it. RG3 gets fired seemingly after defending Florida State. And, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a huge RG3 fan. His commentary has gotten a lot better. His commentary's gotten a lot better since day one. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like a lot of people that I'm all of a sudden like this massive RG3 fan. I was a big fan of him as a football player, but I'm like this massive RG3 fan, and I feel sorry for him. RG3 will be fine. He makes way more money than me and probably anybody in this chat. I'm not going to lose a bit of sleep over Robert Griffin III getting fired from ESPN. I commend him for his comments on Florida State, but if you don't follow me on Twitter, or if you do, you saw what I quote. I replied to him, and it got pretty good traction. Had like over 100 likes or whatever. But I replied to RG3. My problem with RG3, my problem with most of the media still to this day, with the exception of Dan Mullen and Booger McFarland, is they won't tell the real reasons why FSU got left out. The only ones that did tell the real reasons, Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith, and Deion Sanders told you when it happened why FSU got left out. I don't want to sit here and continue to rehash the snub, but ESPN seems to be obsessed with it because they are ESPN at this point is talking about the playoff snub more than Florida State fans. It seems like weekly somebody on that network brings up the fact that Florida State is still, because we're going to get into Paul Feinbaum's bald head, big-eared ass here in a second. Somebody on that network weekly brings it up. Not Florida State fans. Somebody on that network weekly brings it up. The point is, RG3, I'm gonna find this tweet and then I'm going to read exactly what I said to RG3. Because it is important that we draw the line in the sand, folks. At least I'm going to draw the line in the sand because that's, you know me, I don't really care. But I'm going to read RG3's tweet, and then I'm going to tell you what I said. Anyone who was throwing, this is RG3, by the way, anyone who was throwing shade at or trying to take cheap shots at Florida State for being left out of college football playoff last year must be out of touch with reality. FSU wasn't a team that was kept out because they lost the game down the stretch. They are a team that was kept out because their starting quarterback fractured his ankle. Highlight that sentence because we're going to come back to that. That's not something to make light of. The players on that team, the coaches, their families, and the fans certainly were crying tears for one of the most beloved players in all of college football in Jordan Travis. Then they scraped their way to an undefeated regular season with the second and third string quarterback. The team should be celebrated. Again, commendable. I appreciate RG3, but you made a key mistake in that post, my friend. FSU was not left out because Jordan Travis broke his ankle. This is my simple reply. I say I'm with you, except the part where you say FSU was left out because Travis broke his ankles. That's BS. When in the history of sports has a team ever been excluded from something that they earned on the field or court? I added that court part in. After a single player was hurt or unavailable. If anybody has an example of that, please show me. FSU was left out for other reasons. That's 100. I got 148 likes. Some quotes. A bunch of people in the comments telling me I'm crying. Of course, a bunch of people support me. A bunch of people always telling me I'm crying. You know, all that good stuff. RG3, again, shout out to RG3, man. I'm not gonna cry over him being fired. He'll get on his feet. I'm sure of it. But the ESPN at the time when he made this, he was still employed by that network. ESPN continues to bring up that, and they continue to misinform everybody. They won't tell the truth. They continue to use Jordan Travis as an excuse, which is extremely unfortunate and unfair to Jordan Travis, that you continue to make him the poster boy for FSU snub. When the truth is, I mean, it's all conspiracies. Well, we may never know the truth, but what it looks like from the outside is, I think, I'll give you my conspiracy theory. I legitimately believe ESPN and the powers that be, because if you don't think like there's a lot of people like ESPN is just, if you don't think ESPN has a legit stake and a legit influence on the playoff committee, I think you're about as naive can be. I think ESPN and the powers that be got a heads up that this was Saban's last hoorah. And they did him a solid. That's basically what I think. You ain't got to agree with me. You can say I'm crazy, whatever the case. I think they got a heads up that it was Saban's last hoorah, and they gave him a nod. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the rankings and when you look at what was accomplished on the field, 1, 2, 3 should have been set in stone. And Texas beat Bama at home by double digits. It should have been 1, 2, 3 Texas. That's what it should have been. There's no other logical top 4. Michigan, Washington, FSU, in whatever order you want to put them in, Texas. That's it. Bama shouldn't have sniffed. I'm sorry. You lost at home by double digits to Texas. Congratulations. You beat Georgia. You won the SEC. It doesn't matter. As long as ESPN continues to try to put that stuff out, I'm going to continue to say F them. But we'll see. They continue to bring it up. That goes on to Paul Feinbaum. Paul Feinbaum had actually some solid analysis when he said, the question was, what top 10 team will finish unranked? He chose Florida State. Of course, I don't agree with it, but that's okay. I don't agree with most of what Paul Feinbaum says. His analysis wasn't that far off. He had pretty decent analysis. He said FSU has a difficult schedule. They have a questionable roster for the most part. You lose Verse and Fisk and Jarian and Ronaldo, Keon, Johnny, Trey, Travis. Absolutely, FSU has a questionable roster. You could be the biggest FSU fan you want to be, and you can pump all the sunshine in the world. There's a lot of questions on that roster. That's a fact. So he said the quarterback we've seen him a lot. Like he continues to kind of be whatever. I mean, he's not wrong about DJU. DJU's played 4 years. He is what he is. I keep telling y'all, he is what he is. We'll talk about DJU a little later. But then he had to go and he had to take a cheap shot. He had to take a low blow. He had to say, I think they used too many tears crying about not getting into the playoff. Again, ESPN continues to bring up the snub. Almost to the point, like people say, you think ESPN really has a vested interest on snubbing FSU? Do you think ESPN is against FSU? I don't think ESPN has FSU plastered on their wall somewhere and goes, we're going to destroy them every chance we get. I think it's obvious that ESPN has a SEC allegiance. That's their moneymaker. And so they will promote the SEC to the detriment of every single program. And that's in the proof in the pudding. If you watch any of that stuff, Paul Feinbaum has destroyed Lincoln Riley on it any chance he gets. Michigan just won a national championship, and he goes off about how Michigan's going to suck. So if you're not in the SEC, Feinbaum is going to try and tear you down. And by just FSU kind of being the top dog in the ACC, they, I don't want to call it, friendly fire, but they get caught in the crosshairs. The problem is the playoff snub is almost being treated. The playoff snub seems to be being treated as if it's a joke. At least that's how I view it. It's one thing that you did it. Now you're trying to make light of it. Now it's like, oh, yeah, we really got them. And the only reason they're getting away with it is because the stars line up. You can call me a conspiracy theorist. You can say I'm crazy. Nick Saban retired. Bama got in. Oh, they don't really have to answer for anything because the exact next year they go to a 12 team. It's the only reason why they're really getting away with it is they know we knew we could do this because next year we don't really set a precedent because we just going to move to a 12 team and FSU would be in there anyway if it was the same situation. ESPN is they're a shell of the network that they used to be. I used to watch like college football live, like religiously. There's a lot of things I used to watch on that network that was really good. I used to watch religiously. Now I rarely watch. It's not even an FSU thing. It's just the quality of the programming isn't that good anymore, right? The quality of the programming isn't that good. Before we move on, man, we're about to get in here to Georgia Tech and stuff, all that in a minute. I got to get to the comment section and see what everybody's talking about. ESPN is mad at FSU trying to leave the ACC. FSU is either going to the Big 10 or Big 12. Rumors Miami shut down media access. Is that true, T2I? Y'all trying to keep things a secret? As long as the portal is available, I'm not worried about losing any recruits. Mike has flipped this roster and is doing a solid job of developing guys that fit his program. KCS says ESPN's media is like political news. It's not the best. It's not to best inform you. It's a setup to cause disputes and get clicks and hashtags. Accurate. Feinbaum has been on FSU SAC. His opinion is irrelevant. That's accurate as well. Yep, you preaching. RA, what's good? This is Garden and Gold till I'm dead and cold. I got a feeling the crowd is going to be bad next week for game. I'm interested to see a lot of FSU fans. Now, granted, social media is just a snapshot. It's not a real place. I tell you that guys that all the time. But I'm interested to see how FSU fans react on game day. Doesn't ESPN know how many eyeballs FSU brings to the TV set? But I agree on the Saban take. You could smell a snubbing coming even. Yes, absolutely. Which is why I'm not one of those people that like have deemed Kurt Herbstreit as FSU's most wanted. I'm not. I actually care less about Kurt Herbstreit. I never attacked him on social media like a lot of people did. But one of the reasons why he is a Seminole most wanted enemy is because he was starting the narrative before Travis got hurt. 100% facts here in this comment. Before Travis even got hurt, he started the narrative of maybe FSU could get left out if X, Y, and Z were to happen. He started that well before Travis got hurt. And then, coincidentally, Travis gets hurt. Everything happens. And you're going to tell me that ESPN has no influence? I don't know. No way they would not. And that's unfortunate, Galaxy. That's the problem, is that SEC biased. And I know what you're saying, so I'm not accusing you of maybe believing the same, but I would ask you, Galaxy, take last year's college football rank. Take last year. What would your top 4 teams have been for the playoff? Based on actually playing football, not recruiting rankings, not who you think is the most talented. Because if that's the case, if we're just going to judge off of who we think is the most talented, who we think is the most deserving, because this program has X amount of blue chip ratio, their blue chip ratio is whatever, 90%, whatever the case. If that's how we're going to gauge college football, then we can just turn it into a horse competition, a pony show, a beauty pageant, and move on from there. So based on on-field action, Galaxy, who are the top 4 teams last year? I'm curious. Outsiders don't pay attention to who we've replaced those guys with, but to say we would finish unranked is Bush League. I don't agree with it, but again, I don't care about the finish unranked opinion. I honestly don't. I don't care about that. That's his opinion. He's allowed to get on, obviously, TV and say he had to pick 10 teams out of the top 10. So somebody's going to be offended. He picked Florida State. The Bush League part was the crying part. Him saying that FSU would finish unranked, again, I think he made solid points. Coming from a Florida State fan, I think he made solid points until he got to the crying part. ESPN doesn't have the say so. Disney does. Disney shoved their hands up those talking heads and said to make us money. Feinbaum's comments about his FSU's cried too many tears from not making the playoff was unprofessional garbage. I hope we run down on everybody we play again this year. I took off work for the game. ESPN really put in all the J-Trav shoulders. And I agree with Tyler's comment here. By the way, what's up, Tyler? Putting everything on Travis's shoulders or ankle is also ridiculous. The way ESPN talked about Jordan Travis after the injury, I said it then and I'll say it again. How the hell did he not win any postseason awards? They talked about him like he was Quinn Ewers or Caleb Williams or Drake. Like he was a top 5 draft pick is the way they painted Jordan Travis after the injury. Crazy. Galaxy says Florida State was most deserving outside of Michigan and Washington, but top 4 teams at the end of the year was the 4 they selected. I don't know the actual criteria they went with, and then the comment. So your top 4 teams, by results on the field, Galaxy, was the teams they selected. I'm curious, and I don't want to stay too long on this topic, but I'm very curious as to what matters in sports now. If people who say they care about football or people that say they care about sports, and I'm pretty sure most 67 people, pretty sure most of y'all to some degree played some level of sport. I don't care if it was just Pop Warner or just in the backyard or high school, whatever. Most people played some level of sports. So I'm curious to know, when you were coming up and you had a coach, what was the end game of it all? What was the point? What was the point of actually getting on the field or getting on the court and running people, shooting baskets? What was the point? What was the end state? I'm just curious. What was the end state? Because if it wasn't winning, well, then everybody was wasting their time. I was taught winning mattered. You're telling me that if what you're telling me is that the top 4 was correct, that winning doesn't matter. That's what you're telling me, that winning doesn't matter. I don't give a damn about your criteria. I don't give a damn about your strength of schedule. FSU schedule comparable to everybody else in the nation. They played a team that everybody hyped up preseason as a playoff team in LSU and broke their will on national TV and embarrassed them. They played that team. That team that ended up having a Heisman winner and a Biletnikoff winner, by the way. And they embarrassed that team. Embarrassed them. Again, if winning's not the ultimate criteria, I don't care about all that other stuff that you say, oh, I don't know what the criteria. It doesn't matter what the criteria was. FSU's schedule was as competitive as anybody else's. They went undefeated. They should have been in. But Galaxy, you're entitled to your opinion. It just baffles me when I see sports fans. When I see people that say they're a fan of the sport, it just kills me when I see people say winning doesn't matter. When we just gloss over winning as if, we're not talking about Tulane. We're not talking about a team that doesn't play anybody all year that goes undefeated. We're talking about Florida State, LSU, Clemson, Miami, Florida, all on one schedule. If any other team has those, I don't care what you say about those other teams. Any team that has those teams on that schedule is looking pretty good. And FSU won all of those. So it just kills me when I see sports fans feeding into the propaganda, which is what it is. We are turning this into figure skating, but that's fine. Again, I'm not going to take too much time on this stuff. Let's read a couple more comments. We're going to get into this FSU Georgia Tech stuff. We're going to get into the FSU Georgia Tech stuff. One-man team, apparently. Meanwhile, versus putting up NFL tackle. Yeah, absolutely. Marco, I don't know why you come here talking about Louisville, bro. Nobody cares about Louisville. Nobody. You want revenge in the ACC. Okay. So does the rest of the ACC. I definitely think the talking about snubbing FSU from the playoffs when Travis gets hurt, ESPN took it and ran with it. Football's just a beauty pageant now. Apparently, we always told if you win everything else, take care. Wasn't that what was preached? Wasn't that the whole purpose of the 14 playoff, by the way, Antoine? Playing in a Power 5 in a 14 playoff, it said if you just win all your games, you'll be good. College football is now crooked like boxing. All this is why I really haven't cared much this offseason. Why pour all this mental energy into games when they don't matter? The guys on ESPN who actually played the game couldn't help themselves to defend us. Elroy obviously is loyal to his alma mater. Herb Street was told what to say, but Booger and RG3 couldn't because those, again, and yeah, I agree with you. Like, yeah, Booger McFarland, Dan Mullen, RG3, like they kept it real. RG3 didn't keep it 100% real, but for the most part, yeah. The point was winning. I said the most deserving was Florida State. Again, I don't know their criteria. The team that played LSU would have been selected, in my opinion. Michigan had a cupcake schedule. Your playoff snub was a setup. If you know the details of how we lost to Kentucky to drop us in polls to hurt your strength of schedule. That's crazy, though, because you guys were still a top 15 team at the time of the ACC championship game, if I'm not mistaken, Marco. Weren't y'all ranked like 13? Y'all were still a top 15 team. So FSU still went into the ACC championship game against the top 15 team and won and somehow still fell out. It's crazy. But anyway, we'll talk a little bit of DJU, and then we're going to go on FSU Georgia Tech. So there was a. Well, let's go. Let's just go. We'll put it all together. But FSU Georgia Tech, man, we got a game. And this is going to be like two quarterbacks in this game. And Haynes King, who was like a turnover machine at one point last year. And then, of course, DJU, who's not a turnover machine by any really metric, but he tends to be inconsistent in his accuracy and his throws. Does this game come down to DJU and King? On the surface, I think it might look that way. The problem is, I think FSU has them beat up front where it matters. I think that becomes where the game really gets decided. Um, I'm trying to think of like this. This is the game that it to me tells you the season. I personally like. I know people are like SMU is a game you should worry about. Maybe it is. Memphis is a game you should worry about. I think Memphis is more of a game I would worry about than SMU personally. I've kind of dived into the whole SMU thing. Um, Georgia Tech is the game that really has me. I don't know if concern's the right word, but obviously it being the first game of the season. But my antennas are up in this game, and not because I think Georgia Tech is a super talented team. I think they obviously got better. Um, I think they obviously have some pieces. Um, it's just I'm curious to know to kind of what Feinbaum was saying as will there be a hangover? Like Feinbaum could have said what he said without saying the whole crying thing. But I believe there's a legit question. Matter of fact, I don't even think it's a question. There's going to be a hangover from what happened last year. The snub, not talking about the bowl game, the snub. That to me is a given. There's going to be a hangover. The question is it a positive thing or a negative thing? The question for me is, do they take that energy and let it fuel them, or do they the first sign of adversity, right? Do we just like implode? I have no idea. My antennas are up for that reason. I think FSU probably runs the ball um, effectively in this game. I'm interested to see what the offense looks like. Obviously, um, defense I think is fairly standard. I think you can kind of know what you're getting at defense. Who would have thought that at this point, Adam Fuller's side of the ball would be the most consistent, right? Like that's crazy. Since what 2022, since 2022, I think I think the defense has been better than the offense. The offense was really efficient in 2022 or 2023, right? Yeah, 2023. And then 2024, it kind of fell back, I think, because we were just trying to feed the beast that was Keon Coleman. Um, I'm interested to see what the offense looks like now, but the offense has a ton of questions. Like, again, you talk about the roster. I think there are legit questions about especially the offensive side of the ball. What is DJU? How will he be used? I'm gonna talk about that a little bit, and what do you get out of that? But then you got to ask yourself, well, where are the playmakers? We think we have some. I know we have talent. The problem is, it's all super young talent, and some of the veterans we got. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but I'm just gonna be, I'm blunt. I'm honest. Is anybody expecting Kentron Portier to go out there and get it? I won't even go 1,000 yards, 700 yards receiving, and 5 touchdowns. Like that wouldn't be a make it year in his last year. Anybody really see that? What about Darian Williamson? What about Deuce Spann? So the veteran guys kind of fall in line with what the quarterback is. At least with the quarterback, he has a more instant, direct impact on the football game and potentially can be used in certain ways to make him more effective. The good thing about the offense is I think he got one of the top 5 O-lines in the entire country. I've talked about the O-line before. I don't think it has the premium grade A talent on it, though I think Darius Washington is a draftable prospect. I'm interested to see how NFL teams kind of view Maurice, as he's came a long way. I think Keandre is probably draftable. Byers, an improved year is probably draftable. But none of those guys are first day picks. None of those guys are top 30 picks, top 40 picks, most likely. Most likely, right? Darius maybe has the best chance of being like a top 40 guy, right? But the amount of experience and just the wealth of knowledge in that room says that that's a high floor offensive line. It's got high ceiling too, but those guys, very similar to the wide receiving room, very similar to the wide receiver room on the O-line is the young guys are super talented, just not ready. The difference between the wide receivers and the O-line room is the veteran guys in the wide receiver room, yeah, average at best. That might be being kind. You know what I mean? I don't mince my words. While the veterans on the O-line, I mean, they're all ACC caliber players. So you got to be pretty bullish over the O-line and a little concerned about your playmakers on the outside and pretty bullish about your running back room. I think the running back room is going to be pretty damn good combined, I'm trying to say, with the offensive line. That running back room should be top tier. Before we get to the defense, I'm going to talk about DJU here in a second, and then I'll get to some comments. I've said before, DJU, depending on how they use them, could be very, very good for this football team. What I don't want to see is what they did with Jordan Travis last year. What did they do with Jordan Travis last year? Whether this was Jordan Travis's own doing or whether this was the plan. They turned Jordan Travis into a drop back passer. Jordan Travis was throwing the ball 35 times a game, plus, all in an effort to appease Jaheim Bells, the Keon Cole. I get it, right? You brought in those guys who need to catch the ball. Jordan Travis need to be able to drop back and catch the ball. Well, this team isn't designed that way. This team is designed way more as a play action type of a pass game. I said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not saying this guy will be that. I'm not saying DJU will be that because that'd be disrespectful. This might be the only time I say something nice about a Gator player, but this would be disrespectful to Tim Tebow, who's one of the best college players we've ever seen. But can you use him in that 255-pound, whatever it is, frame in a similar manner? Can you run the ball so effective that your wide receivers, your playmakers on the outside are running open because everybody's so worried about it? Well, a way to do that even better is to make DJ a huge threat in the run game. Now, he's not going to be the electric runner that Jordan Travis was, but he's seemingly more durable. Obviously, bigger frame, bigger body, can take a bit more hits. He can also deliver some punishment. If I'm FSU, I use DJU to soften the defense up. I use a lot of misdirections, or what am I trying to say here? I would how Tebow would snap the ball and he would fake a run and then drop. Like, I would do a lot of that stuff with DJ. I would do some just quarterback draw. I would put pressure on defense. Defenses will get tired of hitting 6'5", 255, 65 pounds, whatever he is. Teams will get tired of that. Combined with Roydell, combined with Keziah and Singleton and Toafili, you have a way to really impose your will on defenses, and they'll be so, if you can run the ball effectively, obviously, eyes in the backfield. If you got to account for DJ, eyes in the backfield, well, play action is going to be money because you got speedsters all over the outside. And now it makes everybody's job a lot easier. Let's see what the comment says, then we'll move on to some defensive talk. And then we're going to get into the projected depth chart. We're going to run the ball, and Georgia Tech's run defense was terrible last year. No way are they going to be perfectly buttoned up to shut us down on the ground. Possibly. New year, though. New year, man. You never know. If we leave in Tony Tokars, I think DJU will be fine. 40 year can be 700, I believe. Here's the problem. And if we had DJ for multiple years, I might agree with you. Tony Tokars can't erase what 4 years of coaching has already given DJU. At this point, DJU is he's what he is. It has nothing to do with believing in Tony, because I believe in Tony. You don't erase 4 years in one. Doesn't happen. Portier getting 700 would be amazing. He showed nothing like that so far. So let's see. The wide receiver room concerns me. A lot of Jags in that room until proven otherwise. I don't think there's a lot of Jags, but I understand what you're saying. I think the veterans are just some Jags. I think your young guys are talented. It's just, are we really going to depend on Elijah Moore, LaWayne McCoy? I want to see Hakeem. I'm hoping Hakeem emerges. Jaylen Brown, I hope I think the best veteran receiver you got. Now, there's Malik Benson, who I like. So I'm not counting Malik because he's a transfer. I think the best veteran guy you got is Ja'Kai Douglas. Out of Darian Williamson, Kentron Portier, I think, and Deuce Span. I think the best guy you got on that in the wide receiver room that's been at FSU is Ja'Kai, in my opinion. Peter says he's beat Miami 31-0. If this O-line is only slightly better this year, Atkins got to go. A bold take from KCS. How do y'all feel about that? This the O-line is only slightly better this year. Atkins got to go. My only problem with what you're saying is it's the same players. Except for Leonard. And I know everybody's kind of falling in love with Richie Leonard. I got to see it. Again, I think he's a solid guy. But I just kind of want to see it. I know why they like him. He's almost has the same makeup as, he's like a bigger version of Meach. Probably a little bit more athletic than Meach too. So I kind of see why they like him. I just kind of want to see it in action though. Because I watched him at Florida and he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't popping off the screen, right? So we'll see. But Atkins is a whole nother conversation for another time that I don't want to get into. But to say Atkins has to go, I think is kind of crazy. Georgia Tech's defense is not good. Don't give them turnovers like Miami did. How will the tight ends play this year? Tight end is an interesting question. We didn't talk. Good question from Todd. I didn't really touch on the tight ends. I think Morlock is going to be solid. I'll touch on the tight ends when I do the depth chart. You do realize how much of Atkins has done to pull us out of the ground, the O-line. We were one of the worst O-lines in D1 when the staff took over. DJ used a play action QB. Zay, just to miss Mario effed up. They should have just kneeled. Zay knows that. DJ is not doing that, especially with the NFL mindset coming off what happened to the QB last season. That would be a tough to get. I disagree. Again, DJ isn't Jordan Travis. He's not 6'2", 6'1", 190 pounds. So now, where I sort of agree with what you're saying is there is an NFL mindset that he's coming into Florida State with, because this is his last year to try to make it to the league. So to then kind of play, I guess, I don't want to say a gimmick way, but to maybe not show that he's a traditional passer, maybe he has that mindset. But the NFL's changed, and it would be much more. It would help him so much more to show the NFL that he's a playmaker than to just say he can. Because we know he can't just drop back and throw the ball. He hasn't been effective at that in 4 years of his career. But can he get out there and can he buy in and show the NFL, I can make plays on the football field? And again, I'm not some 6 foot, 200-pound quarterback. I'm a big boy. We'll see. Who is the young guy you're looking to have breakout season this year? So let's do offense and defense for that question. Since we're talking offense, my young guy. First of all, let's qualify young. Is it? Are we strictly talking freshman or freshman and sophomore, Tyler? Because we're including sophomores into that, then that makes the conversation very interesting. Again, a lot of this stuff I can cover when I go over the depth chart. Uh, yeah. DJ goes down, the season is over. I don't see Mike running DJ too many times. Well, guess what? You got to win football games. DJ goes down. DJ can go down standing in the pocket. Hell, this isn't. Brock Glenn's not a true freshman anymore. If DJ goes down, whatever. Like, at the end of the day, man, win games. And if that means you making him a playmaker, 9 out of 10 teams, if the starter goes down, the season's over. So it's not really an excuse I use. What was the season like that DJ had before he got to FSU? You're talking about at Oregon State. I mean, he wasn't world beater at Oregon State. Just wasn't. He was solid. Like, that's the thing about DJ is you go look at his stats and you go, okay, he's solid. Oregon State, I think, overall record was worse than the previous year than when he took over. He had some solid. He had a really good old line at Oregon State. Had a pretty good running back, so he had some weapons. Again, that's all I can really do. Like, I'm not gonna sit here. I'm not the one. I'm not the one that's gonna sit here and tell you DJU is Lamar Jackson or Peyton Manning or anything like that. I think he can be effective if used in a certain way. But if we're scared to use him that way because the season's over or whatever the case, then we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how far just the running game can carry us. We'll see how far, if you really are going to ask him to get back there and drop back and throw 40 times. Like, we'll see how far that can carry you. I hope it doesn't. I really hope it doesn't. Byers is still at right tackle. I need Hakeem to emerge. Freshman and sophomore. Okay, let's get into what's up, Raymond. So we're gonna stay on offense before we go defense because I want to get over the depth chart, and then that's what I'll address some of the freshman, sophomore guys that I think can really make an impact. So obviously, we'll get over the quarterback real quick. We spent a lot of time on DJ, Brock, and then Luke or Trevor. But again, this is my personal projected depth chart. This isn't officially been put out, or this is what I think 1 through 3. So I'm going 1 through 3 for every position. My personal projected, obviously DJ, Glenn, and then Luke or Trevor. Luke missed the spring game. I'm pretty sure he's, you got Trevor Jackson. So maybe depending on, God forbid, knock on wood, but God forbid we have a similar situation where we're down to QB3. Maybe at that point you value you pick between those two. Who do you want a red shirt? Maybe could be who you value more and don't want to necessarily ruin. Not saying the other guy will be ruined, but you get what I'm. Whether it be Luke or Trevor Jackson. Running back, we got a Sam Singleton. No, he's not the starter. I just want to bring him up real quick as we talk about some young players that could make a leap this year and really stand out. He's getting a ton of praise in this offseason. Big Sam Singleton guy over here, that might be one of the candidates for young guys breaking out and being a surprise on this offense. Roydell, starter. After Roydell, I can see a combination of all three of these guys from Keziah, Sam, and Cam. I really think that after Roydell Williams. Like, it wouldn't shock me if it was Sam at 2 and Keziah at 3, Cam at 2 and Keziah at 3. As of what I have written down, I got Roydell, Keziah, Sam, or Cam. But I think they will all. I think they will all get plenty of burn, plenty of opportunities, and plenty of carries. Let's move to tailback. You know, FSU like to do this running back and differentiate running backs from tailbacks. Obviously, Lawrence Toafili and Jalen Lucas are the top two. I put Danzy as 3 only because he fits the bill. I don't think we see a lot of Mekhi Danzy on the field this year, if I'm being honest with you. They may try a package or two, obviously, in games where we have gotten a pretty sizable lead. You get him out there. But at the end of the day, I don't expect to see a lot of Mekhi Danzy. Obviously, you're going to see LT. Obviously, you're going to see Jalen Lucas at the tailbacks. And these are the guys who they will hand the ball off to. But also, this will also be the guys that they put in that passing game. We'll go from tailback to let's go to receivers, and then we'll go tight ends and knock out the O-line. Your X. So your X receiver. This is where I kind of shake it up a little bit for me. So your X is Keon types. You know, X is usually your big receiver. Sometimes can be considered the one, but not always. But you're a more physical guy. Obviously, the candidates here is Kentron, guys like Kentron, Hakeem, Elijah Moore, Darian Williamson probably fits that mold as he's like 6'3-ish. Again, my projected depth chart. I think Hakeem, if it was me, if this was college football 25 and Hakeem was actually in the damn game, he'd be starting, or he'd be my X, followed by Tron. And then I got to put the young boy in here. Don't know how much you really see out of Elijah, but I'm going to throw Elijah Moore out there. They've hyped him up. They've hyped up him and Lil a lot. And honestly, with the injury to Dustin Hill, the transfer of Vandrevius Jacobs, so I think would have had an opportunity to really put up some numbers here on this team, honestly. So with losing those two guys, Hill because of injury and Jacobs because of the portal, I think there's going to be opportunities for one of these young receivers. And there's 2 that have stood out so far in camp. Hakeem, Tron, Moore, X wide receiver. Wide receiver Y. Obviously, it's going to be Malik Benson. And then I get into there's no other Malik Benson's really tight. Maybe on that roster. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. I went with Darian Williamson. He's a little bit more shiftier. And then I went with LaWayne McCoy. I think McCoy, again, like Elijah Moore, he'll have an opportunity. You look at the guys who I list above them. Like Kentron Portier has not been a world beater. If Elijah Moore is 75% of what they claim he's been, he might be a better option than Tron right now. If LaWayne McCoy is 70% of what they said he's been, he might be a better option than Williamson right now. That's why we're super wide. And then you got your Z or your slot guy, Ja'Kai. Again, I think Ja'Kai's the best guy, the best veteran guy on the team. I think Ja'Kai might have a big year this year. Jaylen Brown, he's got that speed. Imagine when you see Benson and Jaylen Brown on the field at the same time, you got to think they're going to take a deep shot or really is going to put pressure on the back end of defenses. And then this is the first guy that I have kind of starting or on multiple, not starting, but on multiple spots on the depth chart. I'm going to go with Jalen Lucas. I think they will use him as a receiver. And that's a guy who I can see them putting in the slot on that third spot. I don't have Deuce Spann because he's not a slot guy. He's got speed. If anything, you would have Dewspan maybe as a X or a Y. I think Dewspan is a special teams contributor. When you tell me Elijah Moore and LaWayne McCoy have been more consistent at receiver than a guy like Dewspan, I think the writing's kind of on the wall for Dewspan. He's a special teams guy. Maybe you can use him on that because he used to be a quarterback. So you can use him on some of the trickeration like they did against LSU, where you can get him to throw the ball downfield if need be. And he has the speed that you can do some things with him. But to a conventional receiver, I don't see it with Deuce. Let's move on to tight end. Morlock, obviously, number one. I got Landon Thomas as 2. And then I got, by default, I got Jackson West at 3. At the end of the day, you're going to use West. I think he'll be a decent blocker. I don't think Amari Williams really factors in. I know he's been kind of hyped up here in the offseason. People think he's very talented. I just don't know if you're really going to see Amari year one. To me, it also sounds like he's completely made that move to tight end. I don't think we ever see Amari, and nor should we. If he's going to be a tight end, make him a tight end, and I'm okay with that. I don't think we'll ever see him at defensive end. At this point, you've kind of put him where you need to put him. Leave him there, because if he was going to be a D end, then you needed to start that weight program yesterday. He's a tight end. Leave him there. So I don't think we really see Amari, but Morlock, Landon, and West at the tight end room. And then O-line's pretty much cemented. I think everybody kind of knows that. Darius, left tackle, early backing him up. And then Lucas Simmons as my third option. Right tackle, Byers. They say Robert Scott's healthy. Just a big – Brian Courtney's still on the team. You're right. He is still on the team. I think Landon Thomas is pretty talented. KCS, you bring that name up. It wouldn't shock me if the tight end room – again, this is just my depth chart. But it wouldn't shock me if the tight end room was Morlock, Courtney, and West. That wouldn't shock me. I'm just kind of throwing Landon Thomas out there. He's got the high ceiling. I think he's got some skills. But they also might want to ease the freshman in there. But, yeah, Courtney is still in the room. Back to the O-line, though. They say Robert Scott healthy. This is a question for the chat I have. 1, if Robert Scott is healthy, how much of an impact can he have? 2, if he's healthy, can he beat out Jeremiah Byers? 3, do you even think he'll last the whole season? And then so Byers, Scott, and then I got Otto. They love them some Otto, man. Otto's been making a lot of – you're going to see with Otto, as we finish off this O-line depth chart, that they are molding Otto, if you can't tell, to be the next Darius Washington. You're talking about a guy that's being cross-trained at literally every position. He's played everything from tackle, guard to center. They love him. What Darius was for the last 2 years, and Darius solidifies himself as the permanent left tackle, I think is what Otto is going to be, is being molded into being as your Swiss Army knife. The guy that can play every position and eventually will be a starter somewhere. But until then, plug and play guy is what Otto's going to be. Powers injury. See, the thing about a guy like Jabril Powers, he's a big body. Notice we haven't heard a lick about him. When guys go through a complete offseason and nobody's mentioning a guy like him, I don't have a lot of faith that he's the goods, so to speak. I remember when Miami thought they was going to get McCoy away from FSU. If Rob can last the whole season at this point, I don't know that's one of the questions. Can Rob even last the whole season? I agree with that. If Scott is healthy, I would start him. You would start him over Byers, Peter? If Scott is healthy, would you start him over Byers? I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just a question. I haven't even given my answer on that one yet. What about Armella? We're going to get into the rest of the O-line going up. Left guard. Again, I think I need to see more from him, but Richie Leonard is probably the starter at left guard. And believe it or not, I think now these two can swap. Estes is the most senior guy, but again, just the way what I'm hearing, what I'm reading, hearing, seeing, I think Otto might be the first backup off the bench. I got Otto backing up Richie Leonard, and then I have Estes creeping in there. So Otto or Estes, but I got Otto, I think, as the first option. I think they love them some Andre Otto, man. I got Otto at number 2 on the left guard. And then right guard, we're going KJ, Ferguson, and then I got Armella there at that right guard position. I think he's going to back up KJ and Ferguson. I like that room for Armella. If we still have hopes of Armella actually being something in the future, I think he can learn a lot behind Ferguson and KJ. That's a good spot for Julian Armella. Then at center is obvious Maurice Smith, because Maurice Smith has been your center for like the last decade. Half a decade. Maurice Smith has been here forever. Then I got the Rizzler out of Harvard, Rizzy. And then I got Otto again. I think if something happens to Rizzler or Maurice, I think Otto is the guy that they would trust to snap the ball. Again, I think Otto has his prints all over this O-line. I got Keandre Jones. That's KJ. That's what I got starting at right guard. KJ I got starting at right guard. Otto has his prints all over this O-line. And I think you have a bright future there with Otto. So I hope that answers some of the questions about some of the young guys that I expect to take a step up. It could be surprises. And that's how I think the offense looks going into game 1 at Georgia Tech. What are your thoughts on my perceived depth chart? Again, starters, DJU, Roydell, LT, Morlock, Maurice, Hakeem, Benson, Ja'Kai, Darius, Byers, Leonard, KJ. Those are the starters, and then everybody that's backing them up. That's what the offense is going to look like, I think, going into Georgia Tech. Obviously, I'll probably be wrong about some of this stuff. The main position groups, I think, Hakeem, again, that's me trying to speak that into existence. Tron probably will start. And that's probably the only one on offense that I probably am taking a leap on. I think everything else is pretty much easy work. Let's move on to the defense, man. Before I move on to defense, let me get to these comments, and then we're going to move on to the defense. I was watching the comments slightly as I was talking. I didn't forget LT. LT is a tailback. He'll be the starter at tailback. How much playing time Lil and Elijah Moore are going to get? I think they'll be in the mix. Hard to say how much playing time they'll get, but I think, especially, again, if you're telling me who's above them is Kentron and Williamson, I think you can see those guys have a solid impact. I'm not going to come out and say that they're going to be like world beaters, right? But because they're freshmen. And when's the last time you seen a freshman wide receiver actually like be that guy? At Florida State, probably Rashard Green was the last freshman, right? I think Rashard Green played as a freshman. Outside of that, you know what I'm saying? So kind of weird. I'm more excited about the defense than the offense. I think. So here's the thing. There's excitement and then there's expectations. Like, I'm excited to watch the offense because I don't know. Like, the excitement, the not knowing of who the playmakers are going to be, how DJU is going to play, has me excited to watch the offense. Maybe it's an uneasy excitement, but I am more excited to watch the offense because I don't know. I think I have a pretty good idea how this defense is going to look. I have higher expectations of the defense, but a bigger excitement level for the offense, if that makes sense. Um, Hakeem got to stay healthy. Seems like he's had some bad luck with injuries in camp. We'll see. If he's not healthy, then Tron will definitely start. Um, let's move the defense. And I'm at weak side defensive end. We got Pat, Byron Turner, and Aaron Hester. Yeah, I put Aaron Hester here on the 3 deep. Um, Aaron Hester was giving Byers the business in the spring. Now, I don't know if that says more about Hester or more about Byers, but either way, I think he's kind of played his way, at least and from everything I'm hearing, I think he's played his way into like a top 3 position. Byron Turner is going to be a nice backup to Pat. And of course, Pat's the guy that we're all expecting, right? To take that step from being really good to now, can you continue the lineage of Jermaine, Verse, and Pat be the next guy? Strong side, I got Marvin Jones, obviously, Sione, and then I got Tamawa because I believe that guy's going to be mixing up between end and tackle. When you talk about the strong side and you talk about guys who are more stiff against the run potentially, I don't know who I would have after. I believe he's Tongan, not Samoan, but he's Polynesian for sure. So after my Polynesian brother, I don't know who I would have on there. Tamawa fits that build more, so I think we get him at that 3rd spot. Nose guard, Jackson, obviously. There's no other body on the roster like Jackson. So it was hard to figure, well, who's going to really back him up? That's when I think they'll switch Farmer over. I got Farmer as, if they're going to go to true nose, Jackson, Farmer, and then KJ. And then at D tackle, Farmer, obviously. And then Grady Kelly / Tamawa. I think they'll both fit that mold. When Tamawa goes inside, obviously, he's not going to be a nose. He's going to be the guy, your 3 tech. He's the guy you're asking to rush the passer from that D tackle position. I think that's where they stick him with Kelly and then Daniel Lyons. I think those are your kind of guys in that room. Farmer, Kelly, Lyons. Tamawa. We got Will and Mike. I have different perceptions of what a Will and Mike are asked to do. So these might be different for some. But my Will linebacker is asked to cover. My Mike is asked to really just lead the defense from the middle. But because, in my mind, my weak side guy should be covering, I got Cam Riley, Blake Nicholson, and Omar Graham as my weak side guys, or my Will linebackers. My Mike is DJ Cryer and Murphy. I like the way my linebackers look at the top. I like Riley, Blake, and DJ. I even like Cryer in certain roles. Murphy, I guess, has been very hit or miss in camp. And then Graham, we'll see. Right, we'll see. This is where I struggle. This is the secondary. And it's really the corner position. So I'm going to save the corners for last. Obviously, we know who the starters are. But then the question is, well, who's backing up these guys? Obviously, we're going to start with the safeties, and then we'll go to the corners here in a second. Safeties, Shaheem Brown, obviously, number 1 guy. And then it's Ashton Barker. And I added KJ Kirkland into there, as those are the 3 in that safety room. And then that buck position, which is like another safety position, whether it's strong safety or free safety, whatever that buck is being, but the buck position is, I got Hussey as the starter. I know a lot of people think Brown is going to be the starter. I want Hussey to be the starter. Then you got Brown. Then you also have Amarion Cooper and Kirkland. For me, Nickel's a lot more easy to figure out than I think the corners are, with Earl Little, Kevin Knowles, and probably Edwin. But let's get to the corners. Let's get to the corners because I'm legit interested. So I said I was going 3 deep at every position. So I have 3 corners that I know are in the rotation. Obviously, AZ, Cypress, and Quindarius. I need y'all's help to figure out these other 3 guys. Obviously, AZ and Fentrell are going to start opposite of each other. I got Quindarius backing up Azariah. My problem is I can't. Is Edwin going to be on the outside, or is Edwin more of a nickel? If Edwin is on the outside, is he more going to back up Fentrell? And if we let's just say, for the sake of argument, Edwin Joseph is backing up Cypress. That still leaves 2 spots in that 6-man secondary. Now we know we have a lot of guys, but do we really think of Charles Lester, Bates, Howard? Do we really think those guys are gonna? I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Bates, Howard, Lester. Who am I forgetting? I know he also signed Ricky Knight, but I think he's more of a safety, but maybe he can play corner. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Maybe those are the 4 guys. Are we really going to see the 4 freshmen? What about Rawls? Is Rawls really in the mix, though, or are we just putting him in the mix because he's been on the team already? Jabril Rawls, I'm mentioning there. What do you guys think? Let me know what you guys think. Hit the like button too, please. I ain't even checked how many likes y'all have given me. Normally I check, but please hit the like button. But yeah, what y'all think? I need some help. Need some help there in that secondary. Who's rounding out those corners? Our safeties are pretty much, we know what we get in there. But what about these corners? We know what we have at the top. I'm just curious to what y'all think that bottom half of the corner room looks like. We know at the top it's AZ, Fentrell, and I believe Quindarius. I think a lot of people think Quindarius is pretty good. But what's happening after that? What's happening after that? Speaking of defensive ends, real quick, Hypnotic says, I like Hester. What happened to Jaden Jones? I don't think nothing's happened to him. That's why I ain't talked about him. Nothing's happened. If we get more from Lines than Kelly, that would be a good thing. Yep. I'm still on the Edwin Joseph hype train. I think dude is going to be legit. Should back up Cypress. Okay, so I'll take Antoine's and we'll go AZ, Fentrell, Q, and then Edwin. So we still got 2 spots. What are those next 2 spots? Kevin Noles has stepped up. As long as Kevin Noles is playing the nickel, I think we're fine. A lot of moving pieces in the secondary. A lot of DBs can play both corner and safety. Fair enough. Edwin has been playing outside in camp. Jabril is in the other guy that can be in the rotation. I know Jabril's a name. My question is, do we legitimately think Jabril is like a guy that you would put on the field? I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying I don't think I'm just asking. Because I feel like, and I hate to say it this way, I feel like that's just, I feel like that's a jag. I'm not saying Jabril Walls can't play. I just feel like a gut feeling, should I say. That's just a guy that they throw, a name that they throw out to keep him engaged. But I don't know. Could definitely be wrong. Got Ricky Knight. So a couple people are saying Ricky Knight. Y'all think Ricky Knight's in that mix as a true freshman? Lester, isn't Howard injured? I don't know. Is he injured? I'm not sure if he's injured or not. I haven't paid too much attention on injuries. Mr. A says, I really want to see Sean Murphy get some bump this year. He grew up an hour away from my hometown. Howard's injured. I heard Kai Bates been playing well. Panama Jackson was no family. I'm calling it FSU's O-line, D-line will dominate the Georgia Tech game. We're going to run all over Georgia Tech and wear them down, go Noles. Edwin's playing outside. Hussey, where this base has been the best of the freshmen so far. Pendarius, Kevin, Omarion, Edwin back up corners. Well, Omarion's made the move to safety, so that's not going to happen. Omarion Cooper's made that move to safety. Pendarius for sure. Edwin's for sure. We've kind of solidified those two. You think Kevin Knowles is going to be at nickel. I'm talking about my outside guys, right? They're not putting Kevin Knowles on the outside. So we can cut the Kevin Knowles talk and we can cut the Omarion Cooper talk. Who are my outside guys? Howard's out for the year? I did not know that. What, did he bust his knee up? Yeah, of course D.D. Holmes on the team. D.D. Holmes is an interesting prospect. D.D. Holmes is a guy who I think might end up as an interior guy because of his size and his frame. I just don't know. I don't think there's a need to rush D.D. Holmes on the field. If he's a DN, there's a bunch of guys that you probably are going to have over him. And if he's an interior guy, well, you got to put some weight on him. So, yeah, I don't expect anything from true freshman D.D. Holmes this year. I think it'd be a good red shirt to take, gain that weight, depending on where. Do they want to keep him as an end? Do they want to move him on the inside? I think he's versatile enough, depending on what they do with him. Thinking Omarion could be used as a corner and safety depth. I hope they keep him at safety. That's just me, though. What happened to Green? Green who? Ronaldo Green? He's in the NFL. He got drafted, Todd. If that's who you're talking about. It's got to be who you're talking about. I agree. I think we had enough of Cooper at corner. I don't want to see Cooper at corner. We don't need to rehash this. The same way we've seen Noles at safety, and y'all watched that last year be kind of a train wreck. There's a lot of things that we don't need to rehash. We have the bodies that we don't need to put guys in positions to not be successful. Put Omarion Cooper in position to be successful. The man played safety all year last year, if I'm not mistaken, at Colorado. Let him stay there. Can you think any teams that will opt out of a championship to ensure a top 11 for the playoffs? Are you talking about like opting out of a conference championship? I don't see where that makes sense because the conference championship gets you an automatic bid. So I don't see why a team would opt out of a conference championship to make a playoff when that gives you the automatic bid. Now you're putting it into the hands of a committee again to put you in. So yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Rawls has been playing inside and out, and Knight has been playing inside. Kai Bates is outside. DD will be a Dennis Briggs type of guy. Yeah, I can see it. He has a bigger frame than Briggs, but no, I can see it. Briggs, they moved Briggs inside and out a lot. So, no, I definitely could see that. Didn't he transfer from us because he didn't want to play safety? I don't know the reason why he transferred. I just know he transferred. No clue why he transferred. All I know about Omarion is they brought him here, asked him what he's playing. The man said safety. So that's what I expect him to be, a safety. And I've watched him enough at corner. I ain't trying to see no more of it. ESPN analysis, Pete Thamel and Reese Davis got us locked as a favorite for the ACC to make the college football playoff. Well, good for them. Duke played corner at Colorado. Lamont Green, he is on the team, but again, Lamont Green's a guy that probably needs some more years cooking in the oven, which is okay. But what if you're an underdog? What do you mean by that? When you say what if you're an underdog? I'm curious as to what you mean by that. Devontae Brown, what he playing for y'all? They moved him to safety. He's playing safety. Cooper backing up Brown at safety. Backup safety for Verdon. Hopefully he doesn't start. Yeah, I want Hussey to start personally, but he's going to be a safety. Our safety room last year being kind of bare bones, our safety room is now pretty top heavy. Earl Little's gonna be your starting nickel. Shy Brown's your starting safety. I'm speaking of the other safety. Um, who has more receiving yards this year, Jalen Lucas or Elijah Moore? By default, I'm going Jalen Lucas. I actually don't even think that's a hard question to answer. I don't see Jalen Lucas getting a lot of conventional carries. I do see him being used in a lot of mismatches. Like if I can get Jalen Lucas on any linebacker in the country, you're probably winning that matchup. I do. I don't know, Briley, if you just tuned in. I do think they'll use him in the slot. Um, I think Lucas is going to have plenty of opportunities to just get the ball in his hands and make plays. So I think that's an easy pick. Elijah Moore, even if he's everything they've said he's been, won't really get the burn needed to make an impact, I think, until midway through the season. That's usually when even freshmen that are all world and people say this is the guy and they are actually living up to that, they usually don't make that move until it's mid-season. It's like usually when it clicks for them. So I think Jalen Lucas will have more receiving yards. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if Elijah Moore, after all the offseason hype, had like 10 catches on. Like, that wouldn't even shock me, to be honest with you. That wouldn't even shock me. I don't have a lot of expectations for young receivers. I don't think it's fair, and they usually don't live up to it. What's up, Sports Mark? Jalen can be a Darren Sproles. Little is obviously pretty good. Greedy Vance got out of there because of it. And Lucas is a gadget player. Yeah, he's a versatile guy. Again, I don't see a lot of conventional carries for Lucas, but he's a guy that you're going to try to get in space. At the end of the day, you're going to try to get him in space and make plays. That will be the game plan for a guy like Jalen Lucas. And I'm not going to go over special teams, though I am curious to know who's going to be returning and punt returning. My thoughts on kick return, it's got to be Deuce Spann and maybe Keziah Holmes. Definitely Deuce Spann. And then whoever they kind of pair with him with doesn't necessarily matter. I think that's where Deuce Spann makes his impact, right? I know he had a kick return for a touchdown last year. You kind of hope he continues that. And then punt return definitely is going to be Jalen Lucas. Watch out for Deuce Spann. I think he will get some burn. No. N-O. N-O. Give up on the Deuce Spann at receiver. It's not happening. It's not happening. Brian says, I don't know. I got big expectations for more with this room, especially if Hakeem misses multiple weeks, starting with week 1, I think. We'll see. See, I don't think that's a good so the way kick return is different than punt return. Obviously, Jalen's going to be punt returning. If I have Deuce Spann back there, I don't know why I would have Jalen back on kick return. You need somebody that can maybe block for him. So, for instance, if y'all remember, if I take it back a little ways, the last time FSU maybe really had really good special teams, or even actually a couple years ago, I know they put Trey Benson back there, but those were big bodies. Like when they put a small guy, you remember Kermit used to return kicks, but they paired him with a big guy like Carlos. So you need a guy that can block. So unless you think that Deuce is no longer the returner and Jalen's going to be the primary returner and Deuce is going to be the blocker, then that one makes sense. But if you're just telling me that I got Deuce as, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't know. Definitely think both of them can do it. I might personally, if I'm gonna use Jalen as much as I want to use him, I might just primarily use him as a punt returner. But because Jalen ain't going out there and blocking for nobody, but maybe Deuce can. Special teams are pretty good. I think special teams will be pretty good this year. Obviously, you get Fitz back, you get Mastromano's back, so you got two of the better punters and kickers in the country. And then, of course, we think we might have cracked the code here on kick and punt returning. We haven't had great punt returners in a while. When was the last FSU? Who was the last really good FSU punt returner? Couldn't tell you. I've given up. I would hope you have. Deuce might surprise that wideout. Okay. I'm wrong all the time. I just don't see it. How many passes do you think DJU throws in Dublin? That's a great question. Shoot. I wouldn't have him throw no more than 30. That's assuming we run the ball. We can run the ball effectively. No more than 30. 30 would be like, again, assuming we run in the ball effectively. I think 30 is a good number. If LSU was 9th in the polls and they played Georgia at 1 in the SEC championship game, LSU knows if they would lose to Georgia, they're out of the playoffs. Wouldn't LSU prefer to opt out for a playoff spot? Okay. If LSU was 9th in the polls and they played Georgia at 1 in the SEC championship game, and they know they will lose to Georgia, they're out of the playoffs, wouldn't LSU prefer to opt out of the playoff spot? I don't know about. First of all, is that even possible? Is it possible for a team to opt out of the SEC? That's number one. I don't know if that's possible. Let's say it is possible. In that situation, in my opinion, I'm not on the committee, but LSU has just moved into independent territory because they're already 9th in the polls. Well, there's a bunch of conference games going on around that time. In my opinion, if you're LSU and you opt out, you fall in the polls regardless because other teams are playing. There will be some upsets. That's a hard hypothetical to answer. I don't see how, if you're a committee, you reward a team that doesn't. Again, if we're talking about playing football and what is the point of playing any sport, the point is to win the game. Not playing the game might be worse than losing it. So opting out, I don't believe should or would help anybody. POLK, I tapped in late. Did I already give a prediction? I didn't give a prediction yet. I'm waiting on that. I did not give a prediction yet. We're kind of just previewing the positions, and we talked a little bit about the DJU versus Haynes King battle. But no, I haven't made a score prediction. And that's all. Exactly. Josh Cribbs. Good comparison for Deuce. That's all he is. Well, the problem is you said war champ. So take that with a grain of salt. But again, if you want to believe in Spann and Williamson, by all means. Greg Reed was the last good punt returner. Kermit was a kickoff returner. War champ be capped sometimes. It's optional. From a business perspective, you can't opt out of the game, forfeit, or lose it. Just as bad. Agreed. Opting out, to me, is a forfeit. So in my opinion, you just forfeited the game, which should count as a loss anyways. Like, there's no logical reason. There would be no way to justify a team saying, you know what, we're just not going to play the championship game. The committee would lose me. If that were to happen and the committee rewarded that type of behavior, that one might put the nail in the coffin for me as a college football fan, if I'm being honest with you. The committee will absolutely count any SEC loss as a quality loss. Losing that game wouldn't guarantee they miss the playoffs. There's a level of truth to that too. LSU losing that game to the number one team in the country, Georgia, again, according to your scenario, would definitely be looked at as a quality loss, and there's no guarantee they would lose that game. I agree. I mean, there's no guarantee that they would that game would throw them out of a 12-team playoff. We got people here hoping to give us an L against SMU. I don't think so. I don't think so. Looks like Murphy was a portal miss. That's cool. All of them can't be hits. Well, it's too early to say he's a portal miss. That's the beauty of the portal in 2024. That's why I think portal's a legit possibility. Like Murphy isn't a one and done guy. I think Murphy's a sophomore. I think he's a redshirt sophomore. So theoretically, you got 3 years of Sean Murphy. Who says he has to put it all together the first year, right? So you got multiple years. He's got multiple years to get it right. Well, I think that's all I got for today. What's up, New King? You're late. I think I'm gonna get on up out of here. We did 2 hours strong. It's been a minute since we did a live stream, so this was a pretty good one. I think I covered a lot of stuff. If you missed the beginning of the show, we talked at length about the Josh Petty situation and just my thoughts and opinions on how I feel about that. I talked a little bit about RG3, him being fired, and just the fact that ESPN continues to talk about something that people say FSU's crying about. People say FSU's crying about the snub, yet ESPN seems to bring it up on a weekly basis. I talked about that. We talked about that big-eared goofball, Paul Feinbaum. And then we got into FSU and Georgia Tech, some thoughts on DJU and what I actually see. Him versus Haynes King, how the game may play out. Then I did my depth chart projections. Again, my projections. That's based on nothing but my own thought process, no facts included. That sums up the show, man. So if you missed any of that, go watch it on repeat. Briley says so many internet Georgia Tech fans are high on their supply, reaching some hurricane levels of delusional optimism. I didn't even know there were internet Georgia Tech fans. Never met one. FSU needs to get back to DBs being punt returners. Miami's extra confident this year. I mean, hey, why wouldn't you be? You got Cam Ward. You're stringing together a couple recruiting classes. Getting a little worried again about our recruiting class. Well, I don't know if there's a reason to be worried about the recruiting class, but missing out on guys, high-profile guys, that you were favored for can always be worrying, William. I will not be back in time for the SMU game, unfortunately. And then they're talking about, okay. So, yep, go ahead. I'm going to get on up out of here, guys. As always, man, it's your boy POLK over here on 863 Similar TV. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share. It's football season, so expect to see. I'm pretty much on the downward spiral here. Training's pretty much done. Again, it's August. I'm less than 90 days. I think I'm less than 60 days out from getting on a plane, headed back to Texas. So I have a lot more time on my hands. So expect me to. We won't be in the lab. We won't be in the studio. So I don't have my helmet. I don't got all the lights around me like if I was in the studio. But you can still expect post game, pre-game, halftime reactions. Granted, I have to find a way to make sure I'm able to watch every game. But as of right now, man, expect all of that good stuff. It ain't going to change. My weekly schedule won't change, but we're going to start slowly getting back into the groove of things. I appreciate everybody, man, for sticking with me through, which has really been a lackluster offseason on my part. Not talking about team, just normally I cover the offseason a lot better than I have this year, but that's just due to circumstances. So I appreciate everybody sticking with me and still looking out for when I do drop something. But expect the season. We're going to ramp back up, try to get on our normal schedule. And definitely once I'm back in Texas, you already know how we rocked in. But as always, man, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. It's your boy Polk. Stay classy, Seminoles, and we are out here. Go Noles.